So today's topic is trig functions of any angle. And what this means is that these values aren't going to be any of your special unit circle values in terms of the angles or the coordinates, but you'll see that it doesn't ultimately really matter. So what I want to do is go back to the formulas that we had for sine and cosine and tangent. Remember when we were on the unit circle, we said that sine was y over r. But on the unit circle, r is 1, so that's why sine on the unit circle is just the y coordinate. But now, since we're not necessarily going to be on the unit circle, we don't know what the radius is. So we have to leave the ratio as y over r. Cosine is x over r. And again, because these angles aren't on the unit circle, we have to leave r instead of saying 1. Tangent, though, is still y over x with no issue. Cosecant is r over y. It's the reciprocal of sine. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine, so that's r over x. Cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, so x over y. So let's see what examples would look like. These are the formulas you need to know. So it says let -3, 4 be a point on the terminal side of theta. So what we want to do is find sine, cosine, and tangent of theta. So the first thing I notice is that -3, 4, that's not one of the coordinates on the unit circle. So that's telling me that I have to use y over r, x over r, and y over x. These are not part of the coordinates that are on the unit circle. So what I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and plot those points. -3, 4 is this point right here. So what that means, there's the angle. The angles, remember, always coming from the origin. So there's the angle out here, and it just so happens that it's because of the point -3, 4, I'm out in quadrant 2. So what you want to do is draw in a triangle, and the triangle is always going to be formed with that horizontal axis. There's that 90-degree triangle. Think about how we filled in the unit circle coordinates, similar to that. So now if I know it's the point -3, 4, looking at this triangle, I can label -3, 4. And what you're going to do is use Pythagorean theorem to find r. So in this case, you solve and get r equals 5. And just note that the radius is always positive. So that means that the radius is 5. So if I were trying to use this triangle to find sine, sine is y over r, so 4 over 5. Cosine is x over r, so -3 over 5. And tangent is y over x, so 4 over -3. So the big key here is just knowing which quadrant your terminal side of the angle is. So if that's the terminal side of theta, that's how I knew that it was going to be in quadrant 2. So the next example, it's not going to be as obvious what quadrant we're in. So in this next example, we're given that tangent is -5/4 and that cosine is greater than 0. What we want to try to do is find sine and secant of that angle. So the first thing I want to do is figure out what quadrant I'm in, and I can kind of do that by process of elimination. All students take calculus. So I know if tangent's going to be negative, I can get rid of this one and this one. Those are the two quadrants where tangent's positive. And if I know that cosine is positive, I can get rid of that quadrant. So I know that this angle, the terminal side of this angle, is going to be in quadrant 4. So what I'm going to do is sketch out an angle that ends in quadrant 4. Now, it doesn't really matter exactly where in quadrant 4. So tangent, remember, is y over x. So if I draw my triangle, remember the triangle is always coming to that horizontal axis. This is x, y, and r. That's traveling in the x direction, the y direction, and then there's r, the radius. So y is going to be 5, and 4 is going to be my x. Now you just want to think about, should that negative go with the 5 or the 4? Because I'm in quadrant 4, x is going to be positive and y is going to be negative. So from there, I know that I need to assign the y to be a negative 5. From there, I would again use Pythagorean theorem to find that r is the square root of 41. So sine is y over r, so negative 5 over the square root of 41, which rationalizes to negative 5 root 41 over 41. Secant is r over x, so secant would be the square root of 41 over 4. Here are some problems for you to try on your own.